My sister refused to watch my son for one day after I paid for her entire wedding. She said, "I'm not your maid." So I took a drastic step that left her begging subscribe to the channel. And like the video to see more stories like this, my sister refused to watch my son for just one day, even after I had paid for her entire wedding. She said, "I'm not your maid." So I took a drastic step. I'm Charlotte Foster, 32 years old, and I was standing in my sister Vanessa's pristine living room when she said those exact words to me. My 4-year-old son Liam sat quietly in his stroller beside me, clutching his favorite stuffed elephant, completely unaware that his aunt had just shattered what remained of our family bond. The morning sunlight streaming through her floor-to-ceiling windows seemed to mock the coldness in her voice. "Vanessa, please," I had said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's just for a few hours. I have a job interview at noon, and the daycare called to say they have a plumbing emergency. They're closed for the day." She didn't even look up from her phone. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the screen as she scrolled through what looked like wedding photos. My wedding gift to her, the wedding I had single-handedly funded 6 months ago. "Charlotte, I have plans," she replied with that dismissive tone I'd heard too many times before. "You can't just show up here expecting me to drop everything. I'm not your maid." Those words hung in the air like poison. Not your maid. As if watching my nephew for 3 hours was equivalent to servitude. As if the $53,000 I'd spent on her wedding meant nothing. I stood there, my hands gripping the stroller handle so tightly my knuckles turned white. Liam looked up at me with those big brown eyes that reminded me so much of his father, and I saw the confusion starting to form on his little face. He didn't understand why Aunt Nessa, who always posted photos of them together on social media with captions about being the best aunt ever, was suddenly acting like he was an inconvenience. "Vanessa, I paid for your entire wedding," I said quietly, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "The venue at Rosewood Estate, your dress from that boutique in Manhattan, the flowers, the photographer, the band, the honeymoon in Santorini, everything." She finally looked up, and the expression on her face made my blood run cold. There was no gratitude, no shame, not even basic human decency, just annoyance. "And I'm supposed to what? Be your servant for the rest of my life because of that?" She set her phone down and crossed her arms. "You chose to pay for my wedding, Charlotte. Nobody forced you. That was your gift. It doesn't mean I owe you free childcare whenever you have a crisis." The casual cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. This was the same sister who had cried in my arms 2 years ago when her then-boyfriend proposed without a ring because he couldn't afford one. The same sister who had begged me to help make her wedding dreams come true because our parents couldn't contribute much on their retirement income. The same sister who had promised, with tears streaming down her face, that she would never forget what I was doing for her. "A crisis?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Vanessa, this job interview could change everything for me. The position pays 60% more than what I'm making now. It could mean I finally afford to move out of that tiny apartment. It could mean Liam could have his own bedroom instead of sleeping in the corner of mine." She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. Maybe if you'd been more careful with your money instead of throwing it at other people's weddings, you wouldn't be in this situation." I felt something crack inside me. Not break, not shatter, but crack, like ice on a frozen lake just before it gives way completely. For 3 years, since Liam's father walked out when I was 7 months pregnant, I had sacrificed everything. I worked as a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm, pulling double shifts whenever I could. I lived in a 400-square-foot apartment in a questionable neighborhood because it was all I could afford after childcare costs. I bought my clothes at thrift stores and hadn't had a haircut at an actual salon in over 2 years. But when Vanessa needed help with her wedding, I didn't hesitate. I had been saving for a down payment on a small house, something with a yard where Liam could play. $28,000 carefully set aside over 4 years. I gave her every penny of it and then took out a personal loan for the rest because I wanted my baby sister to have her perfect day. "I need to go," I said, my voice hollow. I turned the stroller toward the door. "Charlotte, don't be dramatic," Vanessa called after me. "It's not personal. I just have things to do today. You understand, right?" I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I considered turning around and saying something. Anything that would make her understand the magnitude of what she'd just done. But what was the point? She knew exactly what she was doing. She just didn't care. "Yeah," I said without looking back. "I understand perfectly." I left her house and stood on the sidewalk outside, my mind racing. The interview was in 2 hours. I had no backup plan. My parents were on a cruise, unreachable for another week. My best friend Amanda was out of state for work. The few other friends I had were either at work themselves or lived too far away. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called the company to reschedule, knowing that saying I had a childcare emergency probably meant I'd lost the opportunity entirely. Sure enough, the HR representative's voice turned cold when I explained the situation. "Ms. Foster, we had several other qualified candidates for this position. I'm afraid if today doesn't work, we'll need to move forward with other applicants." "I understand," I said, fighting back tears as I watched Liam play with his elephant's ears. "Thank you for the opportunity." As I walked the 6 blocks back to where I'd parked my car, passing Vanessa's gleaming BMW in her driveway, something fundamental shifted inside me. The crack that had started in her living room spread wider, and through it, I saw everything clearly for the first time. This wasn't the first time Vanessa had taken advantage of my generosity. It was just the first time she'd been cruel about it. Over the years, I'd paid for her car insurance when she was between jobs, covered her rent more times than I could count, bought her new laptop when hers broke, even paid for her bachelorette party weekend in Miami. And what had I received in return? Social media posts about what an amazing sister she was, carefully curated to show her in the best light while conveniently never mentioning who funded her lifestyle. I buckled Liam into his car seat, kissing his forehead as he he smiled up at me with complete trust and love. He didn't know that his aunt's refusal had just cost us a chance at a better life. He didn't know that the wedding photos his aunt posted constantly were bought with money that should have been his college fund, but he would never have to know, because I was done being the sister who gave everything and received nothing but contempt in return. I sat in the driver's seat and pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for: Gerald Mitchell, Vanessa's husband of 6 months. Gerald, who worked as a senior architect at a prestigious firm downtown. Gerald, who came from old money and had very specific ideas about financial transparency in marriage. Gerald, who had no idea that his wife had contributed exactly $0 to their wedding because I had paid for everything. You see, Vanessa had told Gerald that our parents had paid for the wedding. She'd spun an elaborate story about them taking out a second mortgage on their house to give her the wedding of her dreams. Gerald, being the traditional type, had been uncomfortable with that and had offered several times to contribute or scale back the wedding, but Vanessa insisted, painting herself as the devoted daughter who couldn't say no to her parents' generosity. It was a beautiful lie, and until that moment, I had kept her secret. My finger hovered over Gerald's number. One phone call could unravel everything Vanessa had built, but I didn't make the call. Not yet, because I realized that simply telling Gerald the truth wasn't enough. Vanessa needed to understand the full weight of her betrayal, and I needed her to feel every ounce of the pain she'd just inflicted on me. I started my car and drove home, my mind already formulating a plan. As I carried Liam up the stairs to our tiny apartment, past the peeling wallpaper and the neighbor's door that always smelled like cigarette smoke, I made myself a promise. Vanessa wanted to know what a real problem looked like. I was about to show her. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Liam was still sleeping in his little corner bed, his elephant tucked under his chin, completely at peace. I looked around our cramped apartment, at the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, at the acceptance letter from the preschool I couldn't afford pinned to the refrigerator, and I felt the last remnants of guilt dissolve. I made coffee in the ancient pot that sputtered and hissed, and I pulled out my laptop. The first thing I did was open my banking app and look at the loan I'd taken out for Vanessa's wedding. $25,000 at 8% interest. Monthly payment, $473 for the next 5 years. Money that could have paid for Liam's preschool, or bought us a reliable car to replace the one that broke down twice last month. Then I opened my email and found the message from the company I'd missed the interview with. The position had been filled just as I'd expected. Another opportunity lost because my sister couldn't be bothered to watch her nephew for 3 hours. I spent the entire day researching, planning, and making phone calls while Liam played with his toys. By the time the sun set, I had everything I needed. 3 days later, I received a text from Vanessa. It was the first time she'd contacted me since the incident. "Hey sis, Mom just called and said she's planning a family dinner when they get back from their cruise. She wants to celebrate Gerald's birthday. You'll come, right?" I stared at the message for a long time. The casual friendliness of it, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't destroyed a job opportunity that could have changed my life, as if the words "I'm not your maid" hadn't carved themselves into my memory like a scar. I typed back, "Of course, wouldn't miss it." Her response was immediate. "Great. Can you maybe bring that amazing chocolate cake you make? Gerald loved it at Christmas." The audacity was almost impressive. She wanted me to not only show up, but also provide free labor in the form of baking. The old Charlotte would have said yes. The old Charlotte would have spent hours making that cake perfect, would have paid for expensive ingredients she couldn't afford, would have shown up with a smile and pretended everything was fine. "Sure," I typed. "I'll bring something special." The family dinner was scheduled for the following Saturday. That gave me exactly 9 days to execute my plan. The first step was a visit to our parents' house while they were still gone. I had a key from when I used to check on their place during vacations. I let myself in and went straight to my mother's home office, where she kept all the family financial records in her meticulous filing system. I found what I was looking for in a folder labeled Vanessa Wedding. Inside were thank you cards my mother had written but never sent, expense receipts, and a handwritten note that made my throat tight. "Charlotte's gift to Vanessa, $53,000, paid in full as of March 15th. Our daughter has the biggest heart." I took photos of everything with my phone, making sure every document was clearly visible. Then I returned everything exactly as I'd found it. The second step was more delicate. I called Gerald's office and scheduled a meeting under the pretense of needing architectural consultation for a renovation project. His secretary was friendly and accommodating, booking me for Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. When Thursday arrived, I dressed carefully in my only professional suit, dropped Liam off at daycare, and drove downtown to Gerald's firm. The building was everything my life wasn't. Gleaming glass, expensive art on the walls, the quiet hum of success and money. Gerald's secretary showed me into his office, and he stood up with a warm smile, hand extended. "Charlotte, this is a surprise. Vanessa didn't mention you were thinking about renovations. She doesn't know," I said, shaking his hand. "Actually, I'm not here about renovations. I'm here about your wedding." His smile faltered slightly. "My wedding?" I sat down in the leather chair across from his desk and pulled out my phone, opening the folder of photos I'd taken. "Gerald, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully because what I'm about to say is going to be difficult to hear." Over the next 20 minutes, I laid out everything. I showed him the bank statements proving my payments. I showed him the photos of my mother's notes. I explained the loan I'd taken out, the interest I was paying, the sacrifices I'd made. And I told him about Vanessa's refusal to watch Liam, about the job interview I'd lost, about her exact words. Gerald's face went through several transformations during my presentation: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, a cold hardness I'd never seen before. "She told told me your parents took out a second mortgage, she said quietly. She showed me papers. Those papers were fabricated, I replied. My parents own their house outright. They've been retired for 6 years and live on a fixed income. They contributed what they could, about $3,000 for your rehearsal dinner. Everything else was me. He sat back in his chair, his jaw working. Why are you telling me this now? Because I asked my sister for one favor after years of supporting her, and she treated me like I was beneath her, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. Because she's been lying to you about something fundamental to your marriage. And because I'm done protecting someone who has nothing but contempt for me. Gerald was quiet for a long time, staring at the photos on my phone screen. Finally, he looked up. The family dinner on Saturday. Is this when you're planning to reveal this publicly? That depends, I said, on what you do with this information. He nodded slowly. I need to process this. But Charlotte, thank you for telling me. I don't make major decisions rashly, but I do value honesty above almost everything else in a marriage. Vanessa knows this about me. I stood to leave, but he stopped me with a question. The chocolate cake she asked you to bring. Are you still making it? Oh, I'm bringing something, I assured him. Just not what she's expecting. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was Amanda, my best friend, calling from her business trip. Charlie, I just got your voicemail, she said, her voice tight with anger. Tell me you're joking. Tell me Vanessa didn't actually say that to you. I'd left her a message the night after the incident, needing to talk to someone who would understand. She said it, Amanda, word for word. That ungrateful, selfish. Amanda's string of curses made me smile despite everything. What are you going to do? Something I should have done years ago, I replied. I'm done being the family doormat. Good, Amanda said firmly. It's about time. Do you need me there? I can catch a flight back early. No, stay and finish your conference. But Amanda, when this is over, things are going to get ugly. Vanessa isn't going to take this well. Let her rot, Amanda said bluntly. You've given her enough. She doesn't deserve another second of your consideration. That night, after I put Liam to bed, I sat down and typed out a detailed timeline of every financial contribution I'd made to Vanessa over the past 5 years. The total came to just over $73,000. Car insurance payments, rent contributions, her laptop, her bachelorette party, her wedding, countless dinners and shopping trips, the deposit on her first apartment, emergency funds when she forgot to pay her credit card bill, $73,000 that could have changed my life and my son's life, $73,000 that had bought me nothing but contempt. I saved the document and titled it The Cost of Being a Good Sister. On Friday night, the evening before the family dinner, I received a call from my mother. They'd arrived back from their cruise early. Charlotte, honey, I'm so excited for tomorrow, she said, her voice warm and happy. It's been too long since we've all been together. How are you? How's my beautiful grandson? We're good, Mom, I said, watching Liam color at the kitchen table. Really good, actually. I'm so glad. And thank you for agreeing to make a cake. You know how your father loves your baking. About that, Mom, I said carefully. I'm not bringing a cake. I'm bringing something else. Oh, what's that? The truth, I said simply. I'm bringing the truth. There was a pause. Charlotte, what are you talking about? You'll see tomorrow, Mom. Just trust me, okay? After I hung up, I received a text from Vanessa. Mom said you're not bringing the cake? Charlotte, you promised. Gerald's parents are coming, and I told them about your baking. You're making me look bad. I stared at that message for a full minute, making her look bad. After everything, she was worried about appearances. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out the box I'd prepared earlier that day. Inside was a printed copy of every bank statement, every receipt, every piece of evidence documenting my financial support of Vanessa over the years. I'd organized it chronologically, with neat tabs separating each year. At the very front was the wedding folder, the crown jewel of her betrayal, and paperclipped to the wedding folder was a photocopy of the loan statement, with the monthly payment circled in red ink, along with a printed calculation showing that I would be paying for her wedding for the next 4.5 years. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather, sunny and mild. I dressed Liam in his nice outfit, the one I'd splurged on for a wedding we'd attended months ago. As I buttoned his little shirt, he looked up at me with those trusting brown eyes. Are we going to see Aunt Nessa, Mommy? Yes, sweetie. We're going to see Aunt Nessa and the whole family. Will Aunt Nessa be nice to me today? The question broke my heart. At 4 years old, Liam had already sensed the shift in his aunt's attitude toward him. Children always knew. It doesn't matter if she's nice or not, baby, I said, kissing his forehead, because Mommy loves you more than anything in the world, and that's all that matters. I picked up the box of documents and my purse. As we walked to the car, my phone buzzed with another message from Vanessa. Running late, can you help Mom set up when you get there? Even now, even after everything, she expected me to provide free labor. The presumption was staggering. I texted back, I'll help Mom, see you soon. What I didn't add was, and then I'll help myself to the satisfaction of watching your perfect life implode. My parents' house looked exactly as it always did. The perfectly manicured lawn, the flower beds my mother tended with religious devotion, the welcome mat that had been there since I was a teenager. But as I pulled into the driveway with Liam beside me, the familiar sight felt different. This was the last time I would arrive at this house as the daughter who stayed silent, who kept secrets, who protected Vanessa from the consequences of her own selfishness. Mom opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a hug that smelled like her signature perfume and fresh-baked bread. Charlotte and my sweet Liam, she scooped up my son, covering his face with kisses while he giggled. Hi, Mom, I said, carrying the box of documents inside. Where's Dad? In the backyard, setting up a grill. Gerald's parents should be here any minute, and Vanessa texted that she and Gerald are 15 minutes away. She set Liam down and looked at the box in my hands. What's that? Just some things for after dinner, I said carefully. Is it okay if I put this in the den for now? She looked puzzled but nodded. Of course, honey. I placed the box on my father's desk in the den, making sure it was visible but not obvious. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. There was still time to back out, to take the box and leave, to keep playing the role of the family peacemaker who absorbed every hurt and betrayal with a smile. But then I thought of Liam's question that morning. Will Aunt Nessa be nice to me today? I thought of the $73,000. I thought of the words, I'm not your maid, and the cold dismissal in Vanessa's eyes when my son sat right there in his stroller, watching his aunt reject him like he was worthless. No, there was no going back. I helped my mother in the kitchen, arranging vegetables on a platter while she fussed over the roast. She was chattering happily about the cruise, about the excursions they'd taken, about how wonderful it was to be retired and travel. I made appropriate sounds of interest, but my mind was elsewhere, rehearsing what I would say, how I would handle the inevitable explosion. The doorbell rang, and my father's booming voice carried from the hallway. That'll be the Mitchells! Barbara, they're here! Gerald's parents, Howard and Patricia Mitchell, were the kind of people who made you sit up straighter just by walking into a room. Howard was a retired federal judge, Patricia a former professor at Yale. They valued tradition, propriety, and above all, honesty. I'd met them 3 times before, all at events surrounding the wedding, and each time Vanessa had been on her absolute best behavior, playing the role of the refined, cultured daughter-in-law. I walked out to greet them, Liam holding my hand. Patricia's face lit up when she saw him. Oh, what a darling boy. You must be Liam. Your aunt has told us so much about you. Hi, Liam said shyly, hiding partially behind my leg. He's a bit reserved with new people, I explained, picking him up. But he warms up quickly. Howard shook my hand with a firm grip. Charlotte, good to see you again. Gerald speaks highly of you. That statement landed with more weight than he probably intended. I wondered what Gerald had told them after our meeting, if anything. We were all settling in the living room when Vanessa and Gerald arrived. I heard her voice before I saw her, high and bright and artificial. We're here. Sorry we're late. Traffic was insane. She swept into the room like she was making an entrance at a gala, wearing a designer dress I recognized from her recent Instagram posts. Her hair and makeup perfect. Gerald followed behind her, his expression carefully neutral. But when his eyes met mine across the room, I saw something there. Acknowledgement. He knew what was coming. Mom, Dad. Vanessa hugged our parents, then moved to Gerald's parents with practiced grace. Howard, Patricia, so wonderful to see you again. Then she spotted me on the couch with Liam, and her smile tightened just a fraction. Charlotte, I'm glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, I replied evenly. She glanced around. Where's the cake? I told Patricia about your amazing chocolate cake. I didn't bring a cake, I said. I brought something else. What? Her voice had an edge now. Charlotte, I specifically asked. Dinner's ready, my mother called from the dining room, inadvertently saving Vanessa from saying something she'd regret in front of Gerald's parents. We all moved to the dining room, where Mom had outdone herself with the table setting. Crystal glasses, the good china, candles, fresh flowers. It was beautiful. The kind of family gathering that looked perfect from the outside. I helped settle Liam in his booster seat between me and my father, while Vanessa positioned herself between Gerald and Patricia, already launching into an animated story about their recent weekend at the Hamptons. As we ate, I observed the dynamics at the table. My mother kept glancing between Vanessa and me, as if sensing tension but unable to pinpoint it. My father was focused on entertaining Howard with stories from his own career. Patricia listened lightly to Vanessa's chatter, but I noticed her eyes occasionally drifting to Gerald, who was unusually quiet. So, Charlotte, Howard said during a lull in conversation, Gerald mentioned you work in financial analysis. What firm are you with? Riverside Financial, I answered. I've been there for 6 years. Solid company. He nodded approvingly. And you're managing that while raising Liam on your own? That takes remarkable strength. Vanessa jumped in before I could respond. Oh, Charlotte's always been the responsible one. So careful with money, so practical. Sometimes I think she forgets to actually live a little, you know? She laughed, but there was something mean underneath it. I keep telling her she needs to loosen up, enjoy life more. Interesting perspective, Gerald said quietly, looking at his wife. Considering how much Charlotte has helped you enjoy life over the years, the table went silent. Vanessa's smile froze. What? I had an interesting conversation with your sister on Thursday, Gerald continued, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of steel. At my office. She told me some things about your wedding that were quite illuminating. Vanessa's face went pale, then flushed red. Gerald, what are you talking about? Whatever Charlotte said, she showed me bank statements, he interrupted. Receipts, documentation. All very thorough and all very different from what you told me about who paid for our wedding. I don't understand, Patricia said, looking between them with concern. What's going on? I set down my fork carefully. May I explain? Vanessa's eyes were wild now, darting between me and Gerald. Charlotte, don't you dare. Don't I dare what? I asked, my voice steady. Tell the truth? Isn't that what families are supposed to do? My mother's hand went to her throat. Charlotte, what truth? I stood up and walked to the den, returning with the box. I placed it on the table in front of Gerald's parents. The truth that Vanessa told you all that your parents paid for the wedding is a lie. The truth is that I paid for it. All of it. $53,000. I have every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of documentation right here. I opened the box and began laying out the evidence, piece by piece, in chronological order. The venue contract with my signature on the check, the dress boutique receipt, the florist invoice, the catering bill, the photographer's payment confirmation, the honeymoon charges on my credit card. This is insane, Vanessa said, her voice rising. You're making this up. Why would you do this? Are you jealous because I'm happy and you're alone? Vanessa, my father said sharply. That's enough. But she was spiraling now, desperate. No, Dad, you don't understand. She's been weird since the wedding, making these little comments parents, acting like she's better than me. This is just another way for her to get attention. Vanessa Marie Harrison. My mother's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Stop talking. Right now. Mom's face was white as she picked up one of the documents. Charlotte, is this real? Did you really pay for all of this? Every penny, Mom, and not just the wedding. I pulled out the second folder, the one with 5 years of financial support documented. This is everything else I've contributed to Vanessa's lifestyle over the years. Car insurance payments when she was between jobs for 8 months, rent money 17 times, her laptop when hers broke, her bachelorette party in Miami, credit card payments, the deposit on her apartment. It totals $73,000. Patricia Mitchell's hand was over her mouth. Howard had gone very still, his judge's face carefully blank as he examined the documents I'd spread before him. My father looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Gerald spoke into the stunned silence. Vanessa told me, specifically, that your parents had taken out a second mortgage to pay for the wedding. She showed me what she said were the loan papers. She let me believe that for 6 months while I felt guilty every time I looked at them, thinking they'd gone into debt for our wedding. Mr. and Mrs. Foster, Howard said quietly, looking at my parents. Is this true? Did you take out a second mortgage? No, Dad said hoarsely. We own our house free and clear. We contributed $3,000 to the rehearsal dinner. That's all we could afford on our retirement income. Vanessa was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and humiliation. You had no right, she hissed at me. No right to tell Gerald. No right to bring this up here. No right to ruin. Ruin what? I interrupted, my voice finally rising. Your perfect image, your carefully constructed lie, the fantasy where you're the beloved daughter whose parents sacrificed everything, instead of the truth, which is that your sister sacrificed everything while you treated her like garbage. I never treated you like garbage. Really. I pulled out my phone and pulled up my text messages. Let me refresh your memory. 9 days ago, I came to your house and asked you to watch Liam for 3 hours so I could go to a job interview. A job that would have paid 60% more than what I make now. A job that could have changed our lives. And you said no. I had plans, Vanessa said weakly. You were looking at wedding photos on your phone. I shot back. Photos of the wedding I paid for. And when I reminded you of that, when I asked you for this one favor after everything I'd done, do you remember what you said to me? The room was completely silent now. Even Liam had stopped playing with his toys, sensing the gravity of the moment. You said, I'm not your maid, I continued, my voice breaking despite my efforts to control it. You looked at me with your nephew sitting right there in his stroller, and you treated me like I was beneath you, like I was asking you to scrub toilets instead of play with your nephew for a few hours. Vanessa's face crumpled. Charlotte, I didn't mean, yes, you did, I said firmly. You meant every word. And that's when I realized I was done. Done protecting you. Done funding your lifestyle. Done being the sister you only acknowledged when you needed something. Patricia Mitchell stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. She looked at Vanessa with an expression of pure disappointment. Young lady, I was prepared to come here today and celebrate my son's birthday with his new family. Instead, I find out that you have been lying to him, to us, to everyone, about something fundamental. Do you have any idea how serious this is? I was going to tell him, Vanessa sobbed. Eventually, you just wanted to keep up the appearance. Howard finished coldly. The appearance of being someone you're not. Gerald, we need to have a family conversation. In private. Gerald stood, his face like stone, but before he left the room, he walked over to where I stood and placed a hand on my shoulder. Charlotte, I'm sorry for not seeing this sooner, for not questioning things that didn't add up. Your sister is lucky to have had you. She just didn't appreciate it. As the Mitchells left the dining room, my parents sat in shock, staring at the mountain of evidence before them. Vanessa remained in her seat, mascara running down her face, her perfect appearance finally cracking to reveal the ugliness beneath. Mom, Dad, she turned to them desperately. You understand, right? I was just trying to make a good impression on Gerald's family. Charlotte's making this into a bigger deal than it is. Bigger than it is? Dad's voice was shaking. Vanessa, your sister gave you $73,000. $73,000. And you repaid her by treating her with contempt when she needed help with your nephew. I didn't know she'd paid for everything at the time, Vanessa protested weakly. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You knew every single time you called me asking for money. You knew when you had me sign the venue contract because your credit wasn't good enough. You knew when you handed me the bills from the dress boutique. You knew, Vanessa. You just didn't care. Mom had picked up a loan statement, the one showing my monthly payments. Charlotte, she whispered, $473 a month for the next 4.5 years? Yes, Mom. I took out a personal loan to cover the portion my savings didn't, because Vanessa wanted Santorini for her honeymoon, and I wanted my sister to be happy. I'll pay you back, Vanessa said suddenly, sitting up straighter. I'll pay every penny back. Just don't do this, Charlotte. Don't ruin my marriage over this. I'm not ruining your marriage, I replied. Your lies are doing that. I'm just done being complicit in them. At that moment, we heard raised voices from the den. Gerald's voice, normally so measured, was shouting. The words weren't clear, but the anger was unmistakable. Vanessa flinched with each raised tone, her earlier defiance evaporating into genuine fear. I think, I said, picking up Liam, that it's time for us to go. Charlotte, wait. Mom stood up, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea you were supporting her like this. If I had known, it's not your fault, Mom, I said, hugging her with one arm while holding Liam with the other. I chose to help her, but I also choose to stop. I need to focus on my son and our future. As I walked to the door, Dad followed me. Charlotte, the money, we'll find a way to pay you back. Dad, no, you're retired. You've earned your peace. This is between Vanessa and me. I kissed his cheek. I love you both, but I can't keep sacrificing my child's future for someone who sees that sacrifice as an entitlement. I left my parents' house house with Liam's hand in mine, the sound of raised voices still echoing from inside. As I buckled my son into his car seat, I saw Gerald's parents walking to their car, their faces grim. Patricia caught my eye and gave me a small nod of respect before getting into the passenger seat. My phone buzzed before I'd even pulled out of the driveway. It was Amanda. "Tell me everything, and tell me you went through with it." I smiled, wiping away tears. "I'll call you when I get home." But Amanda, I did it. I finally did it. What I didn't know then, as I drove away from the wreckage of that dinner, was that the true consequences were only just beginning, and they would be far more devastating than even I had anticipated. The explosion I'd anticipated came faster than expected. I'd barely gotten Liam settled with his snack at home when my phone started ringing. Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately, and again. On the fourth call, I answered. "What, Vanessa? What?" Her voice was shrill, hysterical. "What? Charlotte, Gerald's parents are talking about an annulment. They're saying I committed fraud, that I'm a liar, that I'm not the person they thought I was. You've destroyed my marriage." "No," I said calmly, watching Liam play with his toy cars on the living room floor. "You destroyed your marriage when you lied to your husband about something fundamental. I just told the truth." "The truth?" she screamed. "You humiliated me in front of everyone, in front of Gerald's parents, in front of Mom and Dad. You stood there and made me look like some kind of gold digger. Vanessa, you took $73,000 from me over 5 years and gave me nothing but contempt in return." "What would you call that?" "I would have paid you back eventually," she sobbed. "You never asked for it back. You made it seem like gifts." "They were gifts," I replied. "Gifts that I gave because I loved you and wanted to help you. But gifts come with the basic expectation of gratitude and respect. Instead, when I needed you for 3 hours, you called me your maid. I was having a bad day. People say things they don't mean when they're stressed." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Vanessa, do you remember when Liam was 6 months old and I had pneumonia? I called you, barely able to breathe, and asked if you could come stay with me for a few hours while I went to urgent care. You said you had a yoga class you couldn't miss." Silence on the other end. "Or when he was 2 and I had to work a double shift because someone called in sick, and I asked if you could watch him from 6 to midnight. You said you had a date and couldn't cancel. Or last year when I asked you to come to his preschool Christmas show because I couldn't get off work, and you said you were too tired from shopping all day." "That's not fair," she whispered. "You're cherry picking." "I'm reminding you of a pattern," I interrupted. "A pattern where you take and take and take, but the moment I need anything, you have an excuse." "Well, I'm done with that pattern. You want to know why I told Gerald? Because I realized that protecting your secrets was enabling your behavior, and I'm not going to enable you anymore. Gerald wants a separation," she said, her voice breaking. "He's moving into his parents' guest house while he decides what to do. He said he can't trust me. He said if I lied about this, what else have I lied about? I should have felt triumphant. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? Consequences. Justice." But hearing the devastation in her voice, I felt something more complicated. Not regret exactly, but a kind of sadness for what we could have been as sisters if she'd been capable of seeing beyond herself. "Vanessa, I can't fix this for you. This is yours to deal with. Please," she begged. "Please call Gerald and tell him you exaggerated. Tell him it wasn't that much money. Tell him I was planning to tell him eventually. Please, Charlotte. I'm your sister." "You're right," I said quietly. "You are my sister. And if you were anyone else, I might have walked away years ago. But because you're my sister, I kept giving you chances. I kept believing you'd change. That stopped being my responsibility the moment you made me feel worthless for asking for help." I hung up and blocked her number. Over the next 3 days, the fallout intensified. My mother called, crying, asking if there was anything she could do to help repair things between Vanessa and me. My father called, apologizing profusely for not seeing what was happening, for not stopping Vanessa from taking advantage of me. "She's always been the baby," Dad said heavily. "We spoiled her. I can see that now. And somehow we let her believe the world owed her everything while you carried the burden alone. Dad, this isn't your fault, isn't it?" He sighed. "When you were growing up, we always praised Vanessa's charm, her social skills, how easily she made friends. But we took for granted your responsibility, your work ethic. We expected it from you and celebrated it in her. We created this dynamic." His insight surprised me. "I appreciate you saying that, Dad, but I made my own choices. I chose to help her, and I'm choosing to stop. You don't need to feel guilty. Your mother wants to have lunch with you and Liam this week. Just the 3 of you. Would you be open to that?" "Of course. I'm not cutting off you and Mom. This is between Vanessa and me." But the situation with Vanessa was far from over. On Thursday, I received a certified letter at my apartment. Inside was a formal demand from an attorney I'd never heard of, claiming that I had slandered Vanessa's character and demanding that I cease and desist from making false statements about her financial arrangements. I stared at the letter in disbelief. She was threatening to sue me for telling the truth. I called Amanda immediately. "She's threatening legal action." "On what grounds?" Amanda demanded. "You have documentation for everything." "That's the thing. Her lawyer is claiming the documentation doesn't prove her intentions, that I gave gifts freely and am now trying to hold them over her head." "That's insane. You literally showed bank statements at a family dinner. That's not slander, that's evidence." I made copies of the letter and scheduled a consultation with an attorney of my own, a woman named Teresa Vasquez who specialized in family law. When I walked into her office on Friday afternoon, she took one look at Vanessa's demand letter and laughed. "This is amateur hour," she said bluntly. "Everything you said is demonstrably true. You have receipts, bank statements, loan documents. Truth is an absolute defense against slander. Her attorney is either incompetent or desperate. So I'm not in any real legal danger, none whatsoever. In fact, if she actually filed a lawsuit, we could countersue for frivolous litigation and legal fees." eyes. More likely, this is a scare tactic. She's hoping you'll panic and back down, maybe even offer her money to make this go away. That's not going to happen, I said firmly. Teresa smiled. Good. Then I suggest we send a response informing her attorney that any lawsuit will be met with a countersuit and a formal request for reimbursement of all funds gifted with the expectation of familial goodwill that was subsequently violated. Can we actually do that? It's a gray area legally, but the threat itself will make them think twice. Besides, we have another angle. Her misrepresentation to her husband about the source of wedding funds could be construed as fraud, especially if he can prove financial harm from her deception. Her attorney knows this. I left Teresa's office feeling more confident, but also more aware of how far Vanessa was willing to go to avoid accountability. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about her unwillingness to admit she'd done anything wrong. That evening, I had dinner with my mother at a quiet restaurant downtown. Liam stayed with Amanda, giving us time to talk without little ears listening. She's talking about suing me, Mom, I said, picking at my salad. Actually hiring an attorney to threaten me for telling the truth. Mom's face crumpled. I know. She called me sobbing, saying you'd destroyed her life. Charlotte, I love both my daughters. This is tearing me apart. I understand that, Mom, but you need to understand something too. For years, you and Dad treated Vanessa's failures as temporary setbacks that needed to be managed, while my successes were just expected. When she lost jobs, you made excuses. When I worked 3 jobs while pregnant and still made time to help her, that was just what I did. The family dynamic made her believe she deserved my support without reciprocating it. I know, Mom whispered. Your father and I have been talking about this nonstop. We see it now. We enabled her, and we took you for granted. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I don't need apologies from you and Dad. I need Vanessa to understand that actions have consequences, and I need to move forward with my life without carrying the weight of her problems. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. What can I do to help? Just love us both, I said. But don't ask me to make peace with her until she's genuinely sorry for how she treated me, not just sorry she got caught. On Saturday morning, Gerald called me. His voice was tired, aged beyond his 34 years. Charlotte, I want to thank you for telling me the truth. I know it cost you to do that, especially at a family gathering. How are you holding up? Not great, honestly. My parents are pushing for an annulment. They believe Vanessa married me under false pretenses, that she misrepresented herself fundamentally. My mother especially is livid about the wedding fraud. I'm sorry, Gerald. That wasn't my intent to destroy your marriage. I know, and to be honest, you didn't destroy anything. Vanessa's lies did that. I've been going through our finances this week, looking at everything more carefully. Did you know she has $23,000 in credit card debt that she never mentioned? I closed my eyes. No, but it doesn't surprise me. She's been living beyond our means, making minimum payments, hiding statements. When I confronted her about it, she said she thought I wouldn't care because my family has money, as if that makes it acceptable to deceive me. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I love her, or I love who I thought she was, but I'm realizing that the woman I married might not actually exist. The question is whether the real Vanessa is capable of change, or if this is just who she is. After we hung up, I thought about his words. Was Vanessa capable of change? Or had years of having her behavior enabled by our family, and then me, created someone who genuinely believed she was entitled to whatever she wanted without consequence? The answer came 2 days later, on Monday afternoon. I was at work when my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Charlotte Foster? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, this is Detective Marcus Chen with the Fraud Division of the City Police Department. I need to speak with you about a complaint filed against you by Vanessa Harrison. My blood went cold. A complaint? Mrs. Harrison is claiming that you extorted money from her over a period of several years, using threats and coercion to force her to accept loans that she's now being held responsible for. She's provided documentation showing that you inserted yourself into her financial arrangements without her consent. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. Then rage flooded through me, hot and clarifying. Detective Chen, every financial transaction I had with my sister was documented, requested by her, and given freely. I have emails, text messages, and bank records proving this. She's lying. That's what I need to determine, Ms. Foster. Can you come into the station to provide your documentation and make a statement? Yes, I said immediately. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock? I'll be there. As soon as I hung up, I called Teresa Vasquez. Her response was immediate and fierce. She did what? That's not just desperate, that's potentially criminal. Filing a false police report is a serious offense. Can she actually get away with this? Not if you have documentation. Bring everything to the police station tomorrow. I'll meet you there. Charlotte, this is good for us in a twisted way. If she's willing to lie to the police, it strengthens your case that she's been lying about everything else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Liam's peaceful breathing from his little corner. My sister had escalated from lying to her husband, to threatening legal action, to actually filing a false police report. How far was she willing to go? The answer terrified me, because I was beginning to realize that Vanessa wasn't just fighting to save her marriage or her reputation. She was fighting to maintain the version of reality where she was the victim and I was the villain. And in that version, any lie was justified. Any accusation was fair game. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder where I'd been keeping copies of everything. I organized it all chronologically, creating a timeline that would be impossible to dispute. Every email where she asked for money, every text message thanking me for helping her, every check I'd written with her name in the memo line, every credit card statement showing charges for her expenses. The evidence was overwhelming, but as I worked through the documents, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't about revenge anymore, or even justice. This was about protecting myself and my son from someone who had become dangerous in her desperation. At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I know what you're trying to do. You won't get away with it. You'll regret ever crossing me. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. It had to be Vanessa, using a different phone. The threatening tone, the desperation beneath the bravado, it was all her. I took a screenshot and added it to my documentation folder. Then I blocked that number too. As dawn broke over the city, I got Liam ready for daycare, acting as normal as possible despite the turmoil churning inside me. When I dropped him off, he hugged me extra tight, as if sensing my distress. I love you, mommy, he said, his small voice muffled against my shoulder. I love you too, baby, more than anything in the world. At 8:45, I walked into the police station with Teresa beside me and 2 full binders of documentation in my arms. Whatever happened next, I was ready. Vanessa had forced this confrontation, and now she was going to face the full weight of her lies. Detective Chen met us in a small interview room, his expression professionally neutral. But as Teresa and I laid out the evidence, document by document, email by email, text message by text message, I watched his expression change from neutral to concerned to outright irritated. Ms. Foster, he said after we'd been talking for over an hour, I need to be frank with you. Based on what you've shown me, there's no evidence of extortion, coercion, or financial fraud on your part. What I'm seeing is a pattern of voluntary gifts that the recipient now regrets accepting because they've created problems in her marriage. So the complaint against me is unfounded, more than unfounded. It appears to be deliberately false. I'll be closing this investigation immediately, and I'll be having a conversation with Mrs. Harrison about the consequences of filing false reports. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by a kind of grim satisfaction. Vanessa's desperation had backfired spectacularly. As Teresa and I left the police station, she turned to me with a serious expression. Charlotte, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Vanessa is spiraling, and people who are spiraling do unpredictable things. What do you suggest? Document everything, every contact attempt, every message, every interaction. Consider filing for a restraining order if she continues to harass you. And most importantly, protect your son. Make sure his daycare knows not to release him to anyone but you. Her words sent a chill down my spine. You think she'd try something with Liam? I think desperate people do desperate things. Better to be overly cautious than to regret not taking precautions. That afternoon, I updated Liam's daycare with explicit instructions that only I was authorized to pick him up. I changed my locks. I varied my routine, taking different routes to work and home. And I waited for Vanessa's next move, knowing it would come. It came that very evening, in a way I never anticipated. My mother called, her voice thick with tears. Charlotte, you need to come to the house. Now. It's Vanessa. She's here and she's saying things, terrible things. Your father and I don't know what to do. What kind of things, Mom? She's threatening to hurt herself, Mom sobbed. She says if Gerald doesn't take her back, if you don't admit you lied about everything, she's going to end it all. Charlotte, please. She's your sister. You have to help her. And there it was, the ultimate manipulation, the final card Vanessa could play. And despite everything, despite the lies and the betrayal and the cruelty, she knew exactly which button to push to make me come running. But this time, I didn't run. This time, I made a different choice. Mom, call 911. If Vanessa is threatening to hurt herself, she needs professional help, not me. Call the police and tell them she's making suicidal threats. They'll send someone who can actually help her. Charlotte, no. She doesn't need police. She needs her family. Mom, I love you, but I can't do this. If Vanessa is genuinely in crisis, she needs trained professionals. And if she's not, if this is another manipulation, then she needs to face the consequences of that too. Either way, I'm not the solution. Please, Mom begged, just come talk to her. You don't have to forgive her, just help us calm her down. No, Mom, I have a 4-year-old son who needs me to be stable and healthy. I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep Vanessa warm. Call 911. I hung up, my heart pounding. Then I called Teresa and explained the situation. You did the right thing, she said immediately. If her threats are real, she needs emergency services. If they're not, you've called her bluff. Either way, you protected yourself and your son. 30 minutes later, my father called. The police came. They talked to Vanessa and determined she wasn't an immediate threat to herself. They recommended she seek mental health treatment. She's agreed to see someone tomorrow. Good, I said, feeling drained. Dad, I'm sorry you and Mom had to deal with that, but I meant what I said. I can't be Vanessa's savior anymore. I know, he said quietly. Your mother is starting to understand that too. Charlotte, this has opened our eyes to a lot of things we didn't want to see. We've been enabling Vanessa's behavior for years, and it's not helping her. It's hurting her and everyone around her. What happens now? Now? He sighed heavily. Now your mother and I are going to stop making excuses for her. We're going to tell her that if she wants our support, she needs to take responsibility for her actions. And we're going to tell her that she owes you the biggest apology of her life, though I doubt any apology could be big enough. After I hung up, I sat in the dark of my living room, Liam asleep in his little corner, and I finally let myself cry. Not from sadness or regret, but from exhaustion and relief. The battle wasn't over, but I'd survived the worst of it. And for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of Vanessa's problems on my shoulders. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. And that, I realized, was the true victory. 3 weeks passed in an uneasy quiet. I threw myself into work and caring for Liam, trying to establish a new normal that didn't include constantly looking over my shoulder for Vanessa's next move. My parents called regularly, updating me on her situation with a kind of defeated sadness that broke my heart. She's seeing a therapist twice a week, Mom told me during one of our phone calls, and she's living back here with us temporarily. Gerald hasn't filed for divorce yet, but he's made it clear he needs space and time to think. How is she treating you and Dad? Mom hesitated. Better, actually. I think losing everything or nearly losing everything has shaken her. She's been helping around the house, being more respectful. It's like she's a different person. I wanted to believe that Vanessa had genuinely changed, that the crisis had finally forced her to confront her behavior. But I'd seen too many temporary transformations over the years to trust this one. Vanessa was good at adapting when circumstances demanded it. The real test would be whether the change lasted once things stabilized. On a Thursday afternoon in late spring, I was leaving work when I saw a familiar figure standing by my car. Gerald. He looked thinner than I remembered, with shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Charlotte, he said, straightening up as I approached. I hope you don't mind. I needed to talk to you, and I didn't want to do it over the phone. Of course not. Is everything okay? He laughed, a hollow sound. That's a complicated question. Can we grab coffee somewhere? I promise this won't take long. We ended up at a cafe 3 blocks from my office, sitting in a corner booth away from the early dinner crowd. Gerald stirred his coffee absently, gathering his thoughts. I've spent the last few weeks trying to figure out who I actually married, he began. Not who Vanessa pretended to be, but who she really is underneath all the performance. And the more I learn, the more confused I become. What have you learned? That she's been lying to me since before we even got engaged. Small lies mostly about her background, her job history, her friendships. She told me she had a degree from NYU. She never graduated. She told me she'd been working at a marketing firm before we met. She was actually unemployed for 6 months and living off your money. I closed my eyes. Gerald, I'm sorry. I had no idea about most of that. That's the thing. Neither did I. And when I confront her about these lies, she always has a reason, an excuse. She was embarrassed. She didn't want me to think less of her. She was planning to tell me eventually. But Charlotte, at what point does eventually become never? At what point do all these small lies add up to one big fundamental deception about who she is? What does your heart tell you? He was quiet for a long moment. My heart tells me that I love the woman I thought I married, but I don't know if that woman actually exists. And my head tells me that building a life with someone you can't trust is building on quicksand. Have you told her this? In therapy, yes. We've been doing couples counseling along with her individual sessions. The therapist keeps talking about Vanessa needing to do the work of understanding why she lies, why she feels the need to present a false version of herself to the world. But Charlotte, I can't wait years for her to figure out who she is. I'm 34 years old. I want a family, children, a partnership built on honesty. I can't have that with someone who I have to fact check constantly. So you've made your decision. Almost. I wanted to ask you something first. In all the years you've known Vanessa, all the times you helped her and supported her, did you ever see genuine remorse, real accountability, or was it always excuses and shifting blame? I thought about his question carefully, sifting through years of interactions. Vanessa crying on my couch after losing another job, swearing she'd do better. Vanessa promising to pay me back, then conveniently forgetting when she got money from somewhere else. Vanessa apologizing for saying hurtful things, then saying them again the next time she was angry. I saw what I wanted to see, I said finally. I saw my sister struggling and I believed she wanted to change. But looking back with clear eyes, no, Gerald, I never saw genuine remorse. I saw remorse that she'd been caught, that there were consequences, but not remorse for the actual behavior. He nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed what he already knew. Thank you for being honest. I know that's not easy when it's your family. Gerald, I spent years making excuses for her because I loved her. Don't make the same mistake I did. Love isn't enough if there's no respect, no honesty, no basic human decency to go with it. We talked for another hour, mostly about lighter things. His work, my hopes for a better job, Liam's preschool graduation coming up. It felt good to have an adult conversation that wasn't weighed down by crisis and drama. When we parted ways in the parking lot, he hugged me briefly. Whatever happens with Vanessa and me, I want you to know that you did the right thing by telling me the truth. I'm sorry it cost you so much. That Saturday was Liam's preschool graduation ceremony. He'd been practicing his song for weeks, singing it in the bathtub, in the car, before bed every night. I'd taken the afternoon off work and invited my parents and Amanda. I specifically did not invite Vanessa, and I'd made sure the school knew she wasn't authorized to attend. The ceremony was held in the preschool's small auditorium, decorated with colorful banners and children's artwork. I sat in the front row between my parents and Amanda, watching Liam fidget in his tiny cap and gown with the other children. He's gotten so big, Mom said, wiping her eyes. It feels like yesterday he was a baby. He's not a baby anymore, I agreed, feeling my own tears start. He's growing up so fast. The ceremony began with the director's welcome speech, followed by each class performing their song. When Liam's class took the stage, I pulled out my phone to record, my heart swelling with pride as he sang enthusiastically, slightly off key, his little face scrunched in concentration. Afterward, during the reception with juice and cookies, Liam dragged me around to show me all his artwork on the walls. He was introducing me to his friend Marcus's mom when I felt someone tap my shoulder. I turned to find Vanessa standing there. My body went rigid. What are you doing here? I came to see my nephew graduate, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Charlotte, can we talk, please? Just 5 minutes. I looked at my parents, who had noticed Vanessa's arrival and were watching with anxious faces. Amanda had moved closer, ready to intervene if needed. Liam was oblivious, now showing Marcus his graduation certificate. 5 minutes, I said, outside. We walked out to the parking lot, staying within sight of the building's windows, but far enough away for privacy. Vanessa looked different than she had at the family dinner. No designer clothes, just jeans and a simple blouse. No elaborate makeup, just mascara and lip gloss. She looked, for the first time in years, like a regular person instead of a carefully curated image. I'm in therapy, she started. Real therapy, 3 times a week. And I'm starting to understand things about myself that I've been avoiding for a a long time. That's good, Vanessa. I'm glad you're getting help. My therapist says I have what's called narcissistic tendencies with deep-rooted insecurity. Basically, I spent so much time trying to prove I was worthy of love that I became someone who couldn't actually receive it. I became someone who took but couldn't give back. Okay, she flinched at my neutral tone. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I treated you horribly, especially that day when you needed help with Liam. Charlotte, I've replayed that moment 1,000 times, and every time I hate myself more for what I said to you. And yet you escalated after that. You threatened to sue me. You filed a false police report. You threatened to hurt yourself to manipulate me into backing down. I know, she said, tears starting to fall. I was panicking. Everything was falling apart, and instead of taking responsibility, I tried to make it your fault. I tried to paint you as the villain so I wouldn't have to face what I'd done. It was wrong. All of it was wrong. I watched her cry, feeling strangely detached. These were the tears I'd wanted to see for weeks, the accountability I'd demanded. But now that it was here, it felt hollow, because I realized that even if Vanessa was genuinely sorry, even if she really was changing, the damage had been done. Trust, once broken this completely, couldn't be repaired with apologies. Vanessa, I appreciate you saying this. I do. But I need you to understand something. I can forgive you eventually for my own peace of mind, but I can't have you in my life the way you were before. I can't go back to being the sister you rely on for everything while giving nothing in return. I know, she whispered. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I can be different. Not now, but someday, when I've actually done the work. What about Gerald? Her face crumpled. He's filing for divorce. He says he can't trust me, and he's right. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I couldn't just be honest. His parents won't even speak to me. I've lost everything, Charlotte. Everything except mom and dad. And even they look at me differently now. Part of me, the part that remembered the little sister who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, wanted to comfort her. But the larger part, the part that had to think about Liam and our future, stayed firm. Then use this as a turning point, I said. You have nothing left to lose and everything to gain by actually changing. Not for me, not for Gerald, but for yourself. Become someone you can respect when you look in the mirror. I'm trying, she said. I got a job, a real job, just retail, working at a department store. It's humbling, but it's honest work, and I'm paying my own way for the first time in years. And I'm going to pay you back, Charlotte. Every penny. It'll take time, but I'm going to do it. Keep the money, I said, surprising both of us. Consider it a severance payment from the relationship we had. But Vanessa, if you want any chance of rebuilding something with me eventually, you need to prove you can sustain this change. Not for a few months, but for years. You need to show me that this isn't just another temporary adaptation until things get comfortable again. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. And Charlotte, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything, for taking advantage of you, for treating you with contempt, for trying to destroy you when you finally stood up for yourself. You deserved so much better from me. Yes, I said simply. I did. We stood there for a moment in silence, and I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but perhaps the first honest interaction we'd had in years. Vanessa wasn't performing anymore, wasn't trying to manipulate or charm her way out of consequences. She was just standing there, broken and real, finally facing what she'd done. I should go, she said finally. I won't crash any more of Liam's events. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here, working on myself, trying to become someone worthy of having you as a sister. I watched her walk to her car, an older model sedan I didn't recognize, probably mom and dad's spare. As she drove away, I felt Amanda come up beside me. You okay? She asked, linking her arm through mine. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I think I finally am. We went back inside to find Liam showing his grandfather his graduation certificate for the third time, his face glowing with pride. My parents looked at me with questions in their eyes, and I gave them a small nod. Whatever conversation Vanessa and I had just had could wait for later explanation. Right now was about celebrating my son. As I scooped Liam up in my arms, kissing his face while he giggled, I felt the weight I'd been carrying for years finally lift. I'd spent so long trying to be the sister Vanessa needed that I'd forgotten to be the mother Liam deserved. No more. That evening, after Liam was asleep and my apartment was quiet, I opened my laptop and looked at my bank account. The loan payment was due in 5 days. $473 that would go toward paying off Vanessa's wedding for the next 4 years. But for the first time, I didn't feel resentment when I looked at that number. Instead, I felt something close to relief. That loan was the price of my freedom. Every payment was a reminder that I'd finally stood up for myself, that I'd chosen my son and my own well-being over enabling someone who had taken me for granted. When it was paid off, I'd have closure. And until then, I'd use it as motivation to build the life I wanted, the life Liam deserved. My phone buzzed with a text from Teresa Vasquez. Just heard from Vanessa's attorney. They're dropping all legal threats. Congratulations, Charlotte. You won. I smiled, typing back, thanks, but I didn't win. I just finally stopped losing. The next morning was Sunday, and I had plans to meet my parents for brunch. They'd asked to talk about everything that had happened, and I'd agreed, feeling ready to finally have that conversation. We met at a quiet diner near their house, and as soon as we sat down, Dad reached across the table and took my hand. Charlotte, your mother and I owe you an apology, a big one. We failed you as parents by allowing the dynamic with Vanessa to continue for so long. Dad, you didn't know. We should have known, Mom interrupted. We should have paid more attention. We should have seen that you were sacrificing everything for your sister and getting nothing in return. We enabled her behavior and we took yours for granted. We've been doing a lot of soul searching these past few weeks, Dad continued, talking to our own therapist about family dynamics and favoritism, and we're realizing that we set this pattern in motion when you girls were young. We rewarded Vanessa for being charming and social, social, and we expected you to be responsible without acknowledging how hard you were working. I made my own choices, I said gently. I chose to help Vanessa. You didn't force me. But we created an environment where you felt you had to, Mom said, her eyes filling with tears. Where being the good daughter meant sacrificing yourself. That wasn't fair to you, sweetheart, and we're so sorry. I felt my own tears start. I appreciate you saying that, more than you know. There's something else, Dad said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. We've refinanced our house. Not a lot. We're still being conservative with our retirement, but enough to give you this. He slid the envelope across the table. Inside was a check for $25,000. Dad, no, Mom, I can't accept this. Yes, you can, Mom said firmly. It's not charity, Charlotte. It's us finally contributing to Vanessa's wedding the way we should have from the beginning. That money she stole from you, that money you gave because you loved her, it should have come from us. But your retirement will be fine, Dad assured me. We ran all the numbers. We can comfortably afford this payment and still maintain our lifestyle. And Charlotte, even if we couldn't, we'd still give it to you because you deserve it. You deserve to have the house down payment you were saving for. You deserve to give Liam his own bedroom. You deserve to stop paying for Vanessa's mistakes. I looked at the check, at my parents' earnest faces, and I finally let myself accept something I'd needed to hear for years, that my sacrifices mattered, that I was valued, that I deserved to be helped the way I'd helped others. Thank you, I whispered, and then I was crying, and Mom was around the table hugging me, and Dad was patting my shoulder awkwardly the way he always did, and it felt like something had finally healed in our family. Not everything, not yet, but it was a start. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of what would be Liam's new bedroom, watching as he ran from corner to corner, his voice echoing off the empty walls. This is all mine, Mommy? Just mine? All yours, baby, I said, smiling as he spun in circles with his arms spread wide. The house wasn't large, just a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a safe neighborhood with good schools, but it had a small backyard with a swing set the previous owners had left behind, and Liam's bedroom had windows that let in morning sunlight. After 4 years of him sleeping in the corner of my room, watching him claim his own space felt like a miracle. My parents had helped with the down payment using the money they'd given me, combined with what I'd managed to save over the past months. The mortgage payment was actually less than what I'd been paying in rent, and without the loan payment dragging down my finances, I could finally breathe. Can we paint it blue, Mommy? Like the ocean? We can paint it any color you want, I assured him. Amanda arrived an hour later with pizza and champagne, ready to help me start unpacking. As we sat on the living room floor surrounded by boxes, she raised her glass in a toast to Charlotte, who finally stopped setting herself on fire to keep other people warm. I'll drink to that, I laughed, clinking my glass against hers. So, any word from Vanessa? I nodded, pulling out my phone to show her a text from earlier that week. She's been working at the department store for 7 months now. Got promoted to assistant manager last month. She sends me updates sometimes, nothing demanding, just letting me know she's still working on herself. Do you respond? Sometimes. Short replies. I'm not ready for more than that, and she seems to understand. The truth was, my relationship with Vanessa had settled into something distant but civil. She'd paid back $3,000 so far, small amounts from each paycheck, never asking for acknowledgement or praise. She came to family dinners at our parents' house occasionally, but if I was there, she kept her distance, respectful of the boundaries I'd set. Gerald's divorce had been finalized 4 months ago. I'd heard through my parents that Vanessa had signed the papers without contest, splitting their minimal shared assets down the middle. Gerald had been fair, not pursuing her for anything beyond what she'd brought into the marriage. He'd moved on quickly, according to Mom, already dating someone new. Someone, she'd said with pointed emphasis, who worked as a nonprofit accountant and drove a 10-year-old car. What about you? Amanda asked, unpacking books onto my new bookshelf. Any romance on the horizon? You deserve some happiness after everything. I'm not looking, I said honestly. Right now, I'm focused on Liam and building our life here. Maybe someday, but not yet. My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. It was an unknown number, but something made me answer. Is this Charlotte Foster? Yes, this is Karen Webb from Riverside Financial. I'm calling about the position you interviewed for 6 months ago. My heart skipped. The job I'd missed because Vanessa wouldn't watch Liam. The opportunity I thought was gone forever. I remember, I said carefully. The candidate we hired didn't work out, and your name came up again in our team meeting this week. Several people remembered your interview and were impressed with your qualifications. Would you be interested in coming in to discuss the position again? I looked around my new living room, at the life I was building, at Liam playing with his toys in his new space. 6 months ago, I would have said yes immediately, desperately. Now, I had the clarity to ask the right questions. What's the salary range, and what are the working hours? We talked for 20 minutes about the job details, the team culture, the work-life balance. It was everything I'd hoped for, with enough flexibility that I wouldn't have to sacrifice time with Liam, and the salary was even better than before, a full 70% increase from my current position. I'd love to come in for an interview, I said finally. When works for you? After scheduling the meeting for the following week, I hung up and stared at my phone in disbelief. What just happened? Amanda demanded. I think, I said slowly, the universe just gave me back what Vanessa cost me. The interview the following Tuesday went perfectly. I was confident, prepared, and most importantly, I wasn't desperate. I had options now. I had stability. If this didn't work out, I'd be okay. That confidence apparently showed because they offered me the position before I left the building. I started the new job 3 weeks later, and within the first month, I knew I'd found where I belonged. My team was supportive, my manager believed in work-life balance, and the challenges energized rather than drained me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something for myself, not not just surviving. Liam thrived in his new environment. He made friends in the neighborhood, learned to ride a bike in our small driveway, and started kindergarten at a school where the teachers actually remembered his name. Watching him flourish made every sacrifice worthwhile. My parents visited often, building the relationship with their grandson that had been there all along, but was now freed from the tension of Vanessa's drama. Dad taught Liam to fish in the small pond at the local park. Mom took him to the library every week for story time. They were present in a way they'd never quite managed before, as if Vanessa's absence from our immediate lives had created space for them to focus on what truly mattered. One Saturday afternoon in late fall, almost a year after the family dinner that changed everything, I was raking leaves in the backyard when I heard my doorbell ring. Through the window, I saw Vanessa standing on my porch, holding what looked like a covered dish. I considered not answering. Our relationship existed primarily through text messages and occasional family gatherings now, and I liked it that way. But something in her posture, the way she stood there looking uncertain and small, made me open the door. "Hi," she said. "I know I should have called first. I'm sorry for just showing up. I can leave if you want." "What's that?" I asked, gesturing to the dish. "Lasagna. Your recipe, actually. The one you taught me how to make when I first moved out of Mom and Dad's place. I thought maybe Liam might like it for dinner." I studied her for a moment. She looked different than she had a year ago. Healthier, somehow. Less polished, but more real. Her jeans were off-brand. Her sweater was from Target, and she wasn't wearing any jewelry except for simple stud earrings. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. She followed me into the kitchen, looking around at my modest but comfortable home. "Charlotte, this place is perfect. Really perfect. I'm so happy for you." "Thank you." I took the lasagna and put it in the refrigerator. "What brings you by, Vanessa?" She took a deep breath. "I wanted to tell you in person that I'm moving to Philadelphia. There's a management training program I got accepted into with a small retail chain. It's a real opportunity to build a career, not just work a job." "That's wonderful. Congratulations." "Thank you. And I wanted to give you this before I left." She pulled an envelope from her purse and set it on my kitchen counter. "It's not everything I owe you. It'll take years to pay it all back, but it's a start. $5,000. Every penny I could save over the past 10 months. I opened the envelope and found a cashier's check. $5,000. Money that represented real work, real sacrifice, real change. "Vanessa, you didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," she said firmly. "Not because you demanded it or even expected it, but because I needed to prove to myself that I could work for something, save for something, accomplish something without taking shortcuts or relying on other people's generosity. I'm proud of you," I said, and I meant it. Her eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? This year has been hard for you. You lost your marriage, your lifestyle, your image, but you didn't give up or blame everyone else. You did the work. That takes real courage." We talked for an hour, the longest conversation we'd had in a year. She told me about therapy, about learning to recognize her patterns, about the deep insecurity that had driven her to constantly perform and prove herself. She told me about her job, about the satisfaction she'd found in earning her own way, and she told me about the amends she was making, slowly rebuilding her relationship with Gerald's parents, writing letters to friends she'd wronged. "I'm not asking for us to go back to how we were," she said as she prepared to leave. "I know that's not possible, and honestly it wouldn't be healthy, but I'm hoping that someday, maybe we can build something new, something based on honesty and equality, not me taking and you giving." "I'd like that," I said, "but Vanessa, it needs to stay this way. Separate lives that sometimes intersect, not me being responsible for your well-being." "I understand, and I agree." She hugged me briefly, carefully, as if afraid I might push her away. "Thank you, Charlotte, for everything you did for me, even when I didn't deserve it. And thank you for finally standing up to me when I needed it most." After she left, I stood in my kitchen holding the cashier's check, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Not quite forgiveness, not quite reconciliation, but perhaps the beginning of peace. That evening, as I tucked Liam into his blue-painted bedroom with its ocean-themed curtains and his growing collection of books, he looked up at me with those trusting brown eyes. "Mommy, why does Aunt Nessa look sad when she sees me?" I considered how to answer that honestly but age-appropriately. "Because she made some mistakes, and she's sorry about them, but she's working on being better. Like when I say sorry for hitting Marcus at school? Exactly like that. Saying sorry is the first step, but then you have to actually change your behavior, right?" He nodded seriously. "I don't hit Marcus anymore. We're friends now." "That's because you did the work of changing. Aunt Nessa is doing that work too. Do you think she'll be nice again?" "I think," I said, kissing his forehead, "she's learning how to be nice for real, not just pretending, and that takes time." As I closed his bedroom door and walked down the hallway of my own home, past the walls I'd chosen, the furniture I'd bought, the life I'd built, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: contentment. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Drinks Friday? You can tell me all about Vanessa's visit. I want details." I smiled and texted back, "You're on, but there's not much drama to report. Just two sisters trying to figure out how to have a relationship after everything fell apart. That's the best kind of drama," she replied. "The boring, healthy kind." The following Friday, I received an email from Gerald. We'd maintained sporadic contact over the months, checking in occasionally. Two people connected by the wreckage of Vanessa's deceptions who'd managed to forge an unexpected friendship. "Charlotte, I wanted you to know that I ran into Vanessa last week at a coffee shop. She told me about her move to Philadelphia and the management program. She seems different, calmer, more grounded. I don't know if I could ever trust her again romantically, but I'm glad she's finding her way. And I wanted to thank you again for being brave enough to tell me the truth. My new girlfriend, Michelle, is everything Vanessa pretended to be. Honest, self-sufficient, genuine. I never would have found her if you hadn't opened my eyes." I wrote back, "I'm happy for you, Gerald. You deserved someone who would be real with you from the start. And I think Vanessa is finally learning to be real, at least with herself. Maybe that's all we can ask for. That Christmas, our family gathering was different, smaller, quieter, but infinitely more honest. Vanessa came from Philadelphia for 3 days, staying with our parents, giving me space. We saw each other at Christmas dinner, exchanged polite conversation, and she gave Liam a thoughtful gift, a children's book about a little boy who loved space exploration, complete with glow-in-the-dark stars for his ceiling. I remembered you mentioned he was obsessed with astronauts, she said as Liam tore into the wrapping paper. I hope he likes it. It's perfect, I said, watching my son's face light up. Thank you, Vanessa. As the evening wound down and Vanessa prepared to head back to our parents' house, she pulled me aside one more time. I know I say this a lot, but I need you to hear it again. I'm sorry for everything, for taking you for granted, for treating you with contempt, for trying to destroy you when you finally stood up for yourself. You deserved so much better from me. I know, I said simply, and I'm working on forgiving you, not for your sake, but for mine, because carrying anger and resentment hurts me more than it hurts you. Fair enough, she said with a small smile. I'll take that. And Charlotte, you're an amazing mother. Liam is lucky to have you. Thanks. That means a lot. As I drove home that night, Liam asleep in his car seat, clutching his new book, I thought about the past year and all it had taken from me and given me. I'd lost a sister, or at least the version of a sister I'd been clinging to. I'd lost tens of thousands of dollars. I'd lost sleep, peace of mind, and my naive belief that family would always come through when you needed them most. But I'd gained so much more. Self-respect, boundaries, a beautiful home for my son, a job that valued me, parents who finally saw me clearly, and the knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, capable of standing up for myself even when it meant losing everything I'd thought was precious. 2 years after the family dinner that changed everything, I received another check from Vanessa. This one for $8,000. With it was a note. I'm almost halfway there. Thank you for your patience and for believing I could change even when I didn't believe it myself. 3 years after, she called to tell me she'd been promoted to regional manager, overseeing 12 stores across Pennsylvania. Her voice was bright with genuine pride in an achievement that was entirely her own. 4 years after, she sent me an invitation to her wedding, not to Gerald, but to someone new, Marcus Chen, an accountant she'd met in Philadelphia who knew her entire history and loved her anyway. The invitation included a handwritten note. No expectations. I'd understand if you didn't want to come, but I wanted you to know that this time I'm doing it right. Honest, equal partnership, and I'm paying for my own wedding. I went to the wedding. It was small, held in a botanical garden with 50 guests, most of whom I didn't know. Vanessa wore a simple dress that cost $500 instead of $5,000. The flowers were seasonal and local. The reception was catered but modest, and through it all, Vanessa glowed with a happiness that seemed real because it was built on truth instead of performance. At the reception, she found me during a quiet moment. Thank you for coming. It means everything that you're here. I wouldn't have missed it, I said. You've worked hard to get here. We've both worked hard, she corrected. Me to become someone worthy of your trust, and you to learn when to give it and when to protect yourself. I think maybe we're both better people than we were 4 years ago. Maybe we are, I agreed. As I danced with Liam at the reception, now 8 years old and growing faster than I could believe, I thought about family and what it meant. It didn't mean blind loyalty or endless sacrifice. It didn't mean accepting abuse or enabling destructive behavior. It meant honesty, even when it hurt. It meant boundaries, even when they felt cruel. And sometimes it meant walking away to save yourself, trusting that the people who truly loved you would do the work to earn their way back. Vanessa and I would never have the relationship we'd had before. That sister, the one who demanded everything and gave nothing, was gone. And the sister I'd been, the one who sacrificed endlessly without expecting reciprocity, she was gone too. What remained was something smaller but stronger. Two women who'd hurt each other, acknowledged it, and were slowly building something new on a foundation of honesty instead of obligation. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And after everything, that was enough. Looking back now, I understand that the most important moment wasn't when I exposed Vanessa's lies at that family dinner. It was earlier, standing in her living room with my son beside me, hearing her say, "I'm not your maid," and making the choice to finally value myself as much as I'd always valued her. That choice cost me everything I thought I couldn't live without, and it gave me everything I never knew I needed: my self-respect, my freedom, and a life built on my own terms. For anyone reading this who feels trapped in a similar dynamic, who's sacrificing endlessly for someone who treats that sacrifice with contempt, I want you to know this. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for refusing to be used. You are not wrong for demanding the basic respect you've more than earned. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes family means distance. And sometimes the greatest act of kindness you can show someone is refusing to enable them anymore, even when that refusal breaks both your hearts. My sister refused to watch my son for 1 day after I'd paid for her entire wedding. She said I wasn't her maid, and she was right. I wasn't her maid, or her bank, or her safety net. I was her sister, and I deserved to be treated like one. It took losing everything for both of us to learn that lesson, but we learned it. And in the end, that's what matters. What do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where family took advantage of your generosity? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for being here and listening to my story.